Hey Jay, you all set for tonight's show?
Yeah, I sure am.
Perfect.
What the hell is that?
I don't know. What the... Do we seriously... No, do we have gremlins?
Gremlins? We should call the Ghostbusters.
No, I'm pretty sure we've already done that review.
Oh, yeah, we did that joke. Monster Squad!
We've done that one too.
Oh, right. Indiana Jones?
Oh, come on. Really? No, we've done that too.
E.T.?
What is he gonna do?
Hey guys, we hear you have a gremlin problem.
Whoa! Steve and Dave from Talk Nerdy!
Perfect timing.
You guys didn't feed them after midnight, did you?
Oh, I think I might have.
You should never feed your mogwai after midnight, kids.
I didn't know that.
And make sure you never get them wet.
Wow, thanks a lot, Talk Nerdy. And that's one to gremlin on. This is JPar, and you are listening to the We Promise Nothing Show. Today on the show, we have Dabu, and we have Steve and Dave from Talk Nerdy. They are back, yes! But before we get started, I just want to remind everyone that the music you are listening to right now has been brought to you by Sounds Like an Earful.com. If you need great music for your podcast, check them out, soundslikeanearful.com. Now this week we are reviewing Gremlins. This is a request from Steve himself from Talk Nerdy, and they will be reviewing it with us. Of course, you can take a look at Talk Nerdy on Eastlink at any time. They're always on there. And they will be here to review the movie with us. Say hello to the audience, guys.
Hi, I'm Dave. Glad to be back. Had a blast last time. Thanks for inviting us to do this show again, everyone.
Yeah, I'm Steve. Thanks for having us. I'm really looking forward to Gremlins. A great movie from my childhood.
Dabu here as usual, guys. And I'm really happy to have Dave and Steve back. This is actually bringing back energy that I really enjoyed from our last time they had us.
Yeah, we enjoyed having you guys on the show last time so much. We definitely had to have you back. And if you're wondering what episodes those are, you'd have to go back and listen to the Game of Thrones episode and when we reviewed the new Independence Day movie. And we had fun with that one, Orby's Revenge.
Orby's Revenge. Why did that not take off? Internets. That's on you.
Yeah, internets.
What a stinker. Can we talk
We
about
had
that
all
one
this time.
Great movie. I forget what I reviewed it, but I liked it.
Now, this time we are reviewing a classic. It is Gremlins. Now, that's a classic from 1984. As, of course, you know, we do love these classic 80s movies that we tend to review quite a bit. It's starring Phoebe Cates, Zach Galligan, Corey Feldman, many others. The director is Joe Dante. It's written by Christopher Columbus. You might know him from Home Alone. He's the one that directed that. And it has producers such as Steven Spielberg and other people.
And a list of executive producers. No one really does.
Now, this one was rated PG-13, just like Indiana Jones. It was kind of one of those ones that contributed to the PG-13 rating because it wasn't harsh enough to be rated R, but it was kind of scary for kids. They didn't want it to be PG, so this kind of attributed to the creation of that with the Indiana Jones making the PG-13 rating.
Terrified me when I was a kid. I had nightmares about this movie.
No, I never, I was a child. I did not sleep.
Yeah.
It's funny, too, because this movie, you really cannot take it seriously. At an older age,
No,
it's the total opposite, of course. But
Yeah.
But it was scary enough that under my bed, I would, stuff stuff, around the edges so people couldn't get out. Anyway, PG-13 was apropos.
Yeah.
And I was under 13, so I was terrified.
I would probably watch it at 5 or 6.
Every day.
All right, so just a little bit of trivia and facts before we get into our reviews. In Cantonese, Chinese, mogwai means devil, demon, or gremlin. The time machine prop from The Time Machine, 1960, can be seen behind Rand Peltzer, as I'm sure everyone noticed, when he's on the phone with his wife while attending the convention. A moment later, the machine has disappeared into the future or the past, to the astonishment of several onlookers. Also attending the convention are Steven Spielberg, Jerry Goldsmith, and Robbie the Robot.
I didn't see those in that scene. I didn't see any of that. Even the Time Machine. I gotta rewatch it.
I do remember. I didn't notice that, but I do remember them mentioning saying that the time machine does disappear, and I remember that now. There's like little things like that in this movie.
I do remember the Time Machine. I just don't remember it disappearing after. I guess what it pans.
I don't
out
think
and it
we
pans back
noticed
towards it.
because it was mainly focused on Billy's dad, and it wasn't.
Billy's dad,
Right.
the most interesting character. I want to know his backstory. Just saying.
All right, we'll get into that a bit in a little bit. First, we'll finish this. The theater that blows up was subsequently involved in another accident because if maybe you notice, the set of Kingston Falls is the same one used for Back to the Future.
Great Scott!
Steve practices Great Scott.
Yeah.
And both films were obviously filmed in the Universal Studios back lot. So yeah, that theater that blows up, Marty McFly crashes into it. Smashes into the front entrance of at the end of the film in the original Back to the Future. And at least one of Phoebe Cates' screams in the scene at Dory's Tavern is genuine, because an enormous cockroach crawled out in front of her during one take. And I guess they used it for the movie. Zach Galligan recounted in an interview that when the movie was made, there was no CGI, so all the gremlins were animatronics, each costing between $30,000 to $40,000. When everyone left the lot for the day, security would have everyone open the trunks of their cars and make sure they weren't stolen. You know, make sure you're not confiscating any gremlins or mogwais with you.
That is just general safety. You know, I mean, there's rules against these things getting out. You know what? It was just public safety as a thing.
Yeah.
All right, no fried chicken back there. Okay, go on.
I think it's safe to say they failed to mention that it wasn't all animatronics, because they had that one scene where all the gremlins start to spew it on the street.
Yes, there's
Clearly
that one where
was
they're
all
on the street, and that was definitely clay animation.
Claymation.
Yeah. After watching Tim Burton's earlier short film, Steven Spielberg considered him to direct the film. He decided against it because at the time, Burton had not directed a full feature-length film.
Oh, that would have been an interesting
Could you
movie.
imagine Tim
Completely
Burton's
different.
take on Gremlins?
Completely different.
I
What
want now.
role
I
Johnny
want.
Depp
Yeah.
played, though.
Yeah, I know.
He would have voiced the
Helena
mogwai.
Bonham Carter would have been in it.
Yeah.
I think I would have rather had him probably voice Spike instead of Howie Mandel's
It's
Gizmo, because I kind of still
Stripe
feel like
in this one.
Stripe, yeah.
Spike's in the second one.
Yeah.
Sorry, yeah, you're
Yeah,
right.
that's
You're absolutely
right,
right.
yeah.
I'm sorry, but even then, though, I feel like Howie did such a great job with the voice of Gizmo. There's absolutely no way I would want anyone else to do that.
Which is the next little one and the last trivia I was about to
Ooh.
give. Little to no actual dialogue for the Gremlins and Mogwai exist in the script in itself. In addition to several instances of on-set rewrite changing or adding to much of the script, the voiceovers were mostly ad-libbed, repeating snippets of just performed dialogue or in reaction to other sound effects or environment. To this end, Howie Mandel recorded Gizmo's lines phonetically for foreign dubs of the movie, where localized dialogue and in-jokes help make the picture successful with audiences worldwide.
And that's interesting because, let's be honest, Gizmo's voice was recognizable. I don't want to say the voice of an age, but how many people made jokes or when you're a kid or repeated the voice or used it as that? Like, for a character that had so little speaking time, it was completely repeated over and over again. It's like the I Am Groot of its time, realistically.
It's a good way of putting it. That's absolutely true.
Yeah.
It's not to say a lot of people were actually trying to become a Gizmo, but the voice was just so memorable, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh,
Exactly.
sure.
And of course, he carried that voice on into Bobby's World, because that's the same voice he uses for Bobby in Bobby's World.
Is Bobby shaped the same? He has a big head, if I remember.
Yeah, he's got a
Wide
wide head.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and a weird body. I think it's just a parallel universe.
The next evolutionary step in the Gremlin stage.
There's actually a fourth rule for Mogwai, which you don't know what it is, but it turns them into Bobby.
Yeah, if they eat after midnight again, they go into another cocoon stage,
Yeah.
into another
It's a weird.
into another pupil stage, and then they come out as, "Hi, it's me, Bobby."
It's a reverse puberty where our voices get
Bobby's
lighter. Yeah.
That's why they're so angry when they're gremlins.
Yeah.
Because they know what they're going to become. All right, so let's get on to review this movie. It is Gremlins. It's a classic. And you're going to take us away first, Steve, since you're the one who recommended it.
Okay. So, I really actually, I grew up watching this movie, even though it terrified me. I watched it a lot. And watching it now, I watched it earlier just to kind of put it back in my mind. And it's still fun. It's still everything I remember from my childhood. And some things I didn't remember. There are some things that no longer hold up in my mind and make me wonder, like, why'd you put this in the movie? Get to that later. But overall...
But let's not get to the ratings yet. Let's do our general impressions, and then we'll do the ratings.
All right, well, yeah.
All right, Boo. General impressions.
I actually felt like I didn't grow up with it. However, I was always, I think just like yourself, Steve, I got a little bit terrified by it. I probably was way too young to appreciate the kind of movie that it was. Of course, at an adult stage, you can just sit back and laugh at the entire thing. But I think that kind of speaks for itself. It actually had two different... I don't know if I can go as far to say it was in its pupil stage. But it's really, it was almost like in two different perspectives.
Did you say putrid stage?
Pupil stage.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Putrid stage.
That's what Corey Feldman said in the movie.
Yeah. But it was like, it's having seen it as a child, I just absolutely felt terrified with, believe it or not, it wasn't even the Gremlins themselves that terrified me so much as it was the furry little Gizmo.
Gizmo scary.
Weird enough, he was just weird looking and maybe just too alien looking, I guess, for a young boy to like kind of wrap his head around, that it turned out to be just too much. And then as, of course, I see it now and it's like, oh, how cute. It's almost amazing at how different of a polar opposite that both reactions were. But yeah, to this day, I still think that this is a movie I would never go back to rewatch.
Yeah.
But I will always sit back and enjoy it if it's in front of me.
This is one of those films that I grew up with. I think if E.T. was the first movie I've seen in theater, this might be the second movie I've seen in theater. And to me, this was the cooler version of E.T. Because, you got E.T. and you got like this weird alien or like this weird creature that some kid befriends. And it's just, I don't know, like E.T. was like almost too tame. This is like... if your cute little sidekick friend went wrong, went bad, you know what I mean? And that's what I liked about this. And what I also like about it is the Gremlins themselves. They're not like, they don't eat you. They don't they'll kill you. Like, they're nasty little fuckers. And they'll just do anything to cause any kind of trouble, but they don't have no intent. They just love chaos and they love having fun. And apparently chaos is their fun. So... I don't know. I just the whole thing, it intrigues me, and it intrigued me as a kid, and it still kind of does to some level. This is still a movie I enjoy quite a bit.
I watched this movie a lot. Like when I was younger, like every day I watched this movie.
That kind of movie for you, okay?
Yeah, it was that. Like I was like quoting lines, and I was remembering every scene by scene, and it's looking at it now. I think it is a good rewatch because it's campy fun. When you're younger, there's some images, like you're 4, there's images that will scare you for sure.
Yeah.
But now it's just, it's just kind of a laugh. You're not going to watch it every day now, but, it's just a good romp. So I think it does age well. If you're going to show this to a buddy, or maybe your kids one day, and say, hey, this is kind of like a fun look at monsters. Plus it's not, like we discussed previously, it's not CGI. It's actual robotics, animatronics, and that sort of thing. And that really, that's cool. The way the look of it is very different.
I love anything that uses practical effects.
Yeah, and you don't see that now, so that's why I think it does have that lasting power. So overall, I enjoyed it. But the reason I rewatched it because there's just so much science in this movie that I could not figure out. And is that wrong as my mind goes? I'm like, okay, why does Gizmo give birth to these other ones? Why is Gizmo the good one? What is happening with this water thing? I don't understand.
Well, the one that confuses me the most is don't feed them after midnight. Mm-hmm. Well, then when's the time that you can start feeding them again?
Well, my question is, what determines midnight? It's midnight in a different time zone. Can you feed them then?
I just love how the mogwai is a race of creatures that have evolved to standard time zone logistics. You know what I mean? I'm just very glad that they kept modern before a time of the internet. So that's really good. But as my overall impression, I would definitely say, was that?
Are they aware of daylight savings?
Well, they must be because they knew to cut the wire on the clock. Right? They know about human time. So
they do. They have a great communication system.
They do.
My overall impression, though, I think it's a good rewatch. Definitely don't watch it every day, but use it as an example of movies that define the time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right, so now we will go around the table, and actually give our rating. We're still not going to give anything away, but give a little bit as to why you're giving it that rating, but we're not going to dig into it just yet. And we'll start off with Steve once again.
Okay, yeah, so I am going to give this a whopping 4 mogwai out of 5, and here's why.
Whoa!
I mean, 1 or 2 points of that is pure nostalgia for me, so I'll keep that with a grain of salt right there. But I think the practical effects that we've already talked about, just some of the actual gore in this. I mean, it's gremlin gore, but there is a lot for a young mind to latch onto, and it's
amazing what Spielberg got away with in his movies back in the day, like the melting head and Indiana Jones.
Exactly. You try to put that stuff for a kids' movie nowadays, and they just wouldn't fly.
It's not gonna fly.
So for those reasons alone, for the daring, for the way they were able to push the envelope and make a great movie for kids that is a little darker than what you'd expect.
Yeah,
I think it deserves a good score for that. Yeah.
So 4 is what you're determining.
4 is mine. Yeah.
All right.
Oh, I feel like you guys are going to hate me for this. Maybe it might have a lot to do with the fact that for me it's not a nostalgic view. That's only because of me personally, obviously. But no, I think I was only able to give it maybe about a 2.5, maybe 3 out of 5. You know what? The more I think of it, the more I feel like it is more of a 3 than a 2.5.
Oh, good.
I will say this though.
I think that's a fair rating, though.
But anything below a 3, we're like, oh.
Well, I have to have good reason, right? But I mean, what I will say is this: the movie very much is entertaining, no doubt about it. However, kind of like how you had put it, Dave, it's almost too campy.
Okay.
It's trying to be too safe. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, it's safe to say back then that was not a safe movie. They were trying to do the opposite. They were trying to instill a new rating, for crying out loud. Mm-hmm. So that speaks for itself. But I just love the fact that I can watch this and still thoroughly enjoy it. Yet at the same time, it's one I could easily just as much walk away mid watch and not worry about watching the rest. Yeah. It really isn't so much. It's more filler than anything else for me. But I will admit this: I would love to see a Tim Burton take on this, because that would just make things so much more wacky.
Very different.
But I have to appreciate the fact that, like you guys had pointed out, maybe what gave it more of a 3 than a 2.5 was the fact that everything was physically built. It was not CGI based. And I think to this day we can all appreciate that kind of level of detail, because we do not see it as much now. They lend too much. They almost expect technology to do the rest for them. Whereas if you build something by hand, in this case the animatronics, I felt like you got that much more level of detail. So when they went up close and personal with the close-ups,
they look real.
You could tell that there was some realism to it.
Oh yeah. And that's what I appreciate. Like, even if it looks, it's rubber, and you can tell it looks like rubber, it still looks more real than a CGI thing.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Oh, okay, guys.
By eating the chicken there. It's gross, but you can tell it's real.
And you notice that, like they do that on the Gremlins and on the Mog. Even when they're like hatching, the Mogwais are hatching. Mm-hmm. We're giving away spoilers. Yeah. But we'll get into that in a second. My rating. Oh God, I am so torn. I kind of want to give this a 4.5, but that's the kid in me that wants to give it the 4.5, because I usually give it that extra 0.5 because of the nostalgia factor and things like practical effects. So it almost kind of deserves it. But I mean, you guys are right. I mean, when you get older and you watch this movie, it's campy, and I mean, there's a lot of just holes that you there's holes you could drive a truck through in this. So I mean, I kind of gotta give it. I'm gonna give it a 4. I feel like I should give it more than a 4, but I think I'm gonna settle on a 4 right now. I feel like it kind of deserves that extra 0.5. It's definitely something you should definitely go check out. And as we said, the practical effects, you just don't get that anymore. And there's a very dark humor to this, which I really appreciate. I mean, even if you can just laugh at the Gremlins, they kill people and they're like, I don't know, in some twisted way, you kind of enjoy it. You know what I mean? So, I mean, that in itself, it's just such a unique movie, and it's a gem from the 80s. You gotta check it out.
I think I'll give it a 3.5, and that's not me trying to be different. I mean, a little bit nostalgia, obviously. But I think talking about sort of how it defined the genre, how it created a rating system. It was a good movie, and the reason I'm not giving it a 4 because the idea didn't carry, right? Because we recall Gremlins 2, and there was no Gremlins 3 for a reason, right? It was Dave, Boo, you just talked about filler, and that's pretty what it was, right? It was a movie of fan service filler, cute little monsters running around, and it just didn't carry well enough to have 3 movies. I mean, it was funnish in the second one, but for what the core of what it was contained in the small community, realistically, I think it did what it could do, but it didn't carry. Also, I think we need to recognize too, before I continue on, is how much of a monster Gizmo really is, because he is the only creature in existence that cares not about his offspring. He's like, you are my children, but we're gonna kill you now. You're evil. He doesn't give a dang about his offspring.
You're getting into spoiler town.
Oh, sorry. By the way, I apologize.
This movie's older than I am. Come on, man.
Yeah, so fair point. Spoiler town, and that thought's been ringing in my head, but 3.5 for sure. Worth a rewatch, not worth collecting everything and putting it on your wall and getting a t-shirt.
Ooh, it's kind of ironic you mentioned the collecting aspect of it, because I think it might be the opposite to that. But for the sake of collecting, not for the sake of rewatching, I think is what I'm getting at.
No, fair enough.
Because it is an iconic movie. I don't think I could really think back on... I think Jay said it himself, it was not maybe his first movie he had seen in film, but I mean, growing up as a child, it might have been maybe second or third movie. It certainly made an impact in your life, but I guess not for me. But it was still very much an iconic movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Let's flip in the spoiler town, because I know Dave here is itching to get into that.
So many itches.
So why? Why is Mogwai evil? Why is Gizmo
Gizmo is evil because, from a racial perspective, he doesn't... obviously his race is evil. For instance, his people are just bad. His bad people. I'm not saying, as a species, they are evil. He doesn't care about his kids, which he produced.
Because he knows what they're going to become. He knows what's going to happen.
But what race of animals, you're probably going to be evil, I better kill you now. But he doesn't associate with them. He doesn't do anything to try to teach them. He doesn't do anything to try to bring them in. He is the worst father ever, and I know no one's ever thought of Gizmo as a father, but he is. The only worse father than him is the guy who bought Billy... is the dad who bought Billy the mogwai in the first place.
Here's an unknown animal that we don't know anything about. Let's just introduce him into our environment.
Yeah, seriously.
I told him the 3 rules. It's fine.
It's fine.
Yeah, he's got the rules.
Yeah,
he
well, if
knows.
he's sick, Dad, take him to a vet. Good luck. I don't know. So the Gizmo, I just think he's a terrible father who did nothing to support his children, and then goes out to try to kill them.
Well, he made inventions. Bad inventions.
Yes.
Gizmo also didn't do anything to warn Billy when he's about to give them the plate of chicken. He himself refuses the chicken because he knows it's after midnight. I can't eat this or I turn into a monster. But he didn't tell Billy not to give it to the other mogwai.
Did he know though? Did he know? Because he just went ugh, and that was it.
No, he shook his head. He said no, thank you.
And the other freshly brought into existence creatures were well aware.
They did know.
They knew.
They did know.
Because they planned it. They
cut the
wire,
Yeah.
They bid it or whatever they did.
And maybe I'm thinking too bigger. It is a campy movie. Let's suspend disbelief for a bit. But as far as Gizmo goes, he's a traitor to his people. Let's just be honest.
Yeah, but he's trying to protect the humans. He knows that what the Gremlins, what the mogwai are trying to do, and what they're gonna become, right?
Yeah.
Why do the mogwai?
But why is Gizmo the only one that doesn't want to become a gremlin?
Exactly. What makes I think it might be an age thing. I might when you're young and you're excitable, you're stupid, you want to do stupid things, you want to have fun. Maybe Gizmo, we don't know how mogwai age. Maybe Gizmo's 60 years old. He's an old mogwai and he knows the perils of eating after midnight and getting wet.
Yeah.
He's probably seen this all happen before.
Exactly. There's pain behind those eyes.
These eyes.
I actually have to laugh at the fact that everyone tries to look at it in a very logical and almost scientific sense. Because there's absolutely nothing real about all this. But here's the funny thing. If you really want to get philosophical about it, why not look at it from another point of view where Gizmo's... let's call it maybe a mythical creature. And he
is a mythical creature.
None of us have been calling him that. We've been calling him everything else but mythical. We've been trying to see it from a scientific standpoint.
We probably should have been calling him a puppet, really.
But if we were to take we had the old grandfather who was keeping him secure and safe from society, from the human race, because we were not ready for it, right? I view Gizmo almost as if this was this ancient creature that was bestowed upon the human race with a lot of benefits to this world, but the only way to see the benefits is if we use it responsibly. So it's up to him to decide when the human race would be allowed to benefit from such things. So in the meantime, he's waiting for that moment, but here comes along his grandson who decides to steal it and sell it to the next white man that walks into his grandfather's store.
Damn those white men!
Yeah, or whatever bad guy came in.
I think they make the parallel pretty clear at the end of the movie, where he says, you wasted this mogwai just like you wasted all of nature's gifts.
Just like your
So I think the message there is pretty clear as to what they're trying to get across.
Yes.
Yeah, so there's a real Pandora's box, right? Here's you're gonna get Gizmo after all of this, the only hope that humanity has, and if you open it up, you have strife, turmoil, darkness, evil. So
He did come in a box.
he did.
Yeah, I was thinking that too. He did. I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah. Okay, that's a good point. Realistically, I do feel kind of silly trying to look at the science of it realistically now, but in the same breath, he's evil. No.
If we can't look at this movie scientifically, why are we here?
But Boo, I have to nod to that. Very good point. He is at the end of the day a mythological creature.
I think with Gizmo and with all that said, I feel like maybe he knew right from day one what he meant, like what he was. So this idea of trying to feed Gizmo after midnight, he says no, because he knows damn well what will happen. So he's very much responsible, whereas the teenage boy did the total opposite, which was they need to eat like every other natural living creature. So I feel like I could trying to see it logical, but at the same time, Gizmo is not your average creature, right? So you can't see anything too logical.
Yeah. Good
But
point.
it depends on how literal you want to be about this. But I just love the fact that we tried so hard to try to
justify
hit it dead on the nail as to how this all this works.
So once again, is it okay to start feeding them again after 5 a.m.
Yeah,
or
I
think-
6 a.m.?
What's the breaking point?
I think sunlight. I think sunlight is the time that you stop feeding. You start feeding them again because sunlight
makes sense because sunlight kind of goes with the cycle that kills them and stuff like that. That makes sense.
Yeah.
I think.
All right, so
Sorry.
All
I
right,
think,
go ahead.
I think they just wanted to point out at midnight was the breaking point. That was from then on. At that point, if you feed them, it's almost a guarantee they would turn.
Yeah.
So
That's just use the whole midnight thing because they always do that in old movies and stuff. It's like, once the clock strikes midnight, this is gonna happen.
witching
bad things
hour.
happen. Yeah.
It's a lazy trope.
It kinda is, but it's the 80s, so we'll let them.
The
get
80s
away
is a
with
lazy
it.
trope.
But so many great movies.
Yeah.
All right, let's go around the table and let's name off our favorite and our least favorite about this. This time, Dave's going to take it away.
Okay. My favorite moments in this movie, honestly, I love the mysticism, and here I am talking about science and mysticism, was the beginning of it. Walking into the shop, the narrator was the father the whole time, that's I think a really interesting way to approach it, right? Like we're looking at these characters, but the narration of it and the way it's explained is from the father's point of view and hearing what happens and all that stuff. So I think the movie knocks out of the ballpark in regards to getting the mysticism set up and then hits us with the reality of what's modern day 80s for the past for us, but modern day 80s. So I think that's one of my favorite parts of the movie is that ancient Oriental shop. And I almost wanted to know, what's that guy's story? What is that shopkeeper's story? Where is he from? How did he get this thing?
There's definitely there's just something to say there.
Yeah,
for sure,
there's a prequel there.
There's a prequel about many things. I mean, even Billy's father, these wacky inventions that he has. There's a story there, too.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And I think my least liked part of it, I think, it's hard to say. I mean, I did love that old lady, definitely on the swivel chair coming down. And that
she was a mean bitch, eh?
Yeah,
she definitely got what she deserved.
Yeah, she was terrible.
I laugh my ass off every time I see her fly out that window.
Yeah.
Mrs. Deagle, bye-bye, Mrs. Deagle.
Yeah.
One might even say that we would love the scene even before it happens because we see her coming down the stairs
Yeah.
on that chairlift, and you know what's going to happen.
You kind of
later
know
on.
because you know
Yeah,
what the
she's
Gremlins
impatient.
do, right?
Yeah.
And that's classic Spielberg, right? They paint up this character that you hate, and we're just gonna get rid of them in a nasty way. And even if it's the monsters that are doing it, you're still gonna enjoy it. Think about that scene in Jurassic Park when the lawyer gets chomped up by the T-Rex. You laughed, didn't you? Because stupid lawyer.
Those were all monsters.
I was crying the whole time, you jerk.
Yeah, right. No one cared about that lawyer.
You knew that guy.
That was a very personal moment.
But I'll wrap it up. I think my least liked moment was actually when I keep wanting to say Spike now, but Strike.
Oh, yeah, my bad.
Was in the water producing more gremlins. I felt that it kind of broke the existing logic. Mogwais make gremlins. after midnight, so why do we even have mogwais if gremlins can do it? It just destroyed the logic for me for a bit, and I know I can't look at this scientifically. This is why I kept watching this
Ruined
movie.
the immersion for me.
It did in my older years. But those are my most and least liked moments. I'll pass that on now. I can go for hours.
My favorite part in the movie, I think, has to be the kitchen scene.
Yes!
You have the gremlins hatching for the first time. The mother's alone in the house making gingerbread cookies. And then the gremlins attack. And it is the first part in that movie. Like, there were other kind of gross parts, like them hatching in the first place. That's the first part where you get into the real gore of the movie. Gremlin blood everywhere. She puts one in the blender and blends it, and she's covered in this green goo.
It has to be the most gory scenes in the entire movie.
And then she takes a kitchen knife, and stabs the gremlin over and over.
She's fucking badass.
She's brutal.
I did remember that scene, actually, because maybe for all I know, I blocked it out of my mind as a child. But
yeah.
I think I remember saying it out loud. What, is she going to go and stab the gremlin? Oh, wait, she is.
No, and then exploding it in the microwave just tapped it off perfectly for me. That scene, to me, I also didn't really remember it from when I was a kid, and when I watched it earlier, it blew my mind. I laughed a lot at the whole thing, and I was like, oh my god, this is the best. The best. Any other scene after that is good, but doesn't beat Billy's mom kicking the...
Billy's mom is such a fucking badass in this movie.
Oh, 100% she is.
She's more of a badass than Billy, for sure.
She might be the hero.
Yeah, given the fact
It's too bad she wasn't in the rest of the movie, because she kicked some serious gremlin ass.
I would have liked to see her, like, just even a spin-off of Billy's mom and what she did for the rest of the night.
Billy's mom versus the Gremlins.
This movie has a lot of spin-offs.
Well, that's the mark of a great franchise right there.
Then we got Gremlins too.
So, what's your least favorite?
Least favorite for me. I know you guys mentioned it earlier as part of your favorites, so don't stone me.
Oh,
here.
are you for real?
Mrs. Deagle is my least favorite part of this movie. Not her death, but just the fact that she's in the movie at all.
She disturbs you that much?
Well, the thing is, what disturbs me about it is something you never notice as a kid, but the fact that her character is completely unnecessary to the movie. Like, they set her up at the beginning of the movie. They spent a good part of the movie just setting her up to be a mean bitch. She's everyone's landlady. Everyone owes her money. Yeah. She's not accepting any, she's not like, no, you have to pay me now. I'm in it for the money. I'm going to kill your dog, Billy.
Don't care if your kids are starving. Yeah. You got to pay my rent.
Yeah.
It was almost like the Grinch of this movie.
Exactly.
So
Exactly. She comes up as she's a
It is a Christmas movie.
Yeah. And so there's after all this, after walking into a bank and telling the teller, I'm going to kill your dog, Billy. If I catch him, your dog's dead. How can you get away from it?
Who says that out loud in public?
I know.
You wouldn't be able to get away with that anymore.
You couldn't. But after all of that, there's no resolution for her character. There's no like, you don't see her. She doesn't impact the gremlins at all. So you're just building her up to be a monster, to be a mean person. And then, sure, it makes it more fun when the gremlins kill her. But that's really all it is. It's a fun scene. I laughed when she died. I love the scene where she gets thrown out the window. But I feel like I needed more from me as Mrs. Deagle to make her impactful in the movie. You could have taken her out entirely. Wouldn't have changed a thing.
The moral of that is Steve hates seniors. Is what he is trying to say.
He hates cranky old folk.
Yeah,
I just hate cat people. She had too many cats.
That's a little.
Hey, it's going over the line. Nothing wrong with cat people.
All right, I take it back.
All right, so what's your favorite and least favorite there, Boo?
I know you guys have had your favorites, and I kind of feel like the one that I had to appreciate the most, because I'm a sucker for detail, right? And the detail in this case for me is the level of detail that they put into the Gremlins, the animatronic versions. Mm-hmm. So to me, I think my favorite scene has to be where all of that detail blends together into one scene, which is all the Gremlins meeting up. Sorry, maybe not the main scene you might be thinking of, but the scene in the bar.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay.
Not the scene in the theater, which clearly I think is what everyone is thinking of.
That's
where they completely...
more the main scene, but in the bar... There's a lot more comical stuff going on with the Gremlins. There's a lot more
much going on.
If characters going, and there's so much going on in the background.
I love the fact that you can look and pause and watch everything that's going on. But one of my favorites is actually, if you pay close attention, there's one Gremlin who takes an ashtray. I think it's an ashtray. And it's
dumps it in the tip jar?
Yeah, it had a whole bunch. No, I think he dumped it into a glass of beer is what it was.
Okay.
I don't know if anyone intended to drink it afterwards, but I mean, they're Gremlins. They'll eat anything, right?
Yeah.
I just love the fact that every single corner of the room was covered in a Gremlin doing something stupid, right up until you saw the age-old jazzy, old gremlin sitting at the table by himself, with, almost like the wise old man. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And every character had a personality right up until I think the poker table, where Stripe and everyone else was playing poker right up until someone, pulled out an ace. He was trying to sneak in an ace. You could tell he had an extra ace in his one hand and his 5 cards in the other. So clearly you could tell he was cheating.
Yeah. And then Stripe shoots him.
And then the one that's dressed as a girl
is a woman.
Because I'm pretty sure they're all male, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, the one dressed as a girl, like
pretty much rats on the one gremlin that he's cheating. That was absolutely great.
I really want to point out something, Boo. What a great point. Each one has their own personality.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's what's so good about this movie is it captures in like 10 seconds. You have a gremlin. Here's his shtick. Here's his personality. It stays with you. Gone. Like that's such a really great point about this movie and what they really do capture with it, and that's why I would not raise it to 4, but I reaffirm my 3.5.
The problem with Gremlins 2 is that scene you're talking about, Boo, in the bar. That's Gremlins 2. That's the whole thing. They took that scene where all these Gremlin characters are really crazy and wacky, and they have all these crazy different personalities. But they took that scene and they that's the whole movie in Gremlins 2.
They tried to duplicate it.
Yeah, they tried to do that part. They tried to focus more on the corny and the campy of Gremlins.
Making Gremlins 2 pure filler.
Yeah, exactly. And that kind of speaks for itself for the scene in the first movie. Then you're absolutely right. If they tried to replicate that in the second movie and almost use it as an entire filler throughout the entire thing, I think that's all the more reason why I think the scene works so great.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of 80s throwbacks in that scene too, because they're doing the Flashdance. They're doing Flashdance, and I think you said the jazz listener there in the corner.
Mm-hmm.
A whole bunch of 80s throwbacks are in there, and you'll see that in even Gremlins 2. In fact, like I said, that's the whole movie, so even that whole movie is 80s throwbacks.
Yeah.
But
speaking of which, too, actually, I remember stumbling upon when we were looking at all the voice actors for the Gremlins themselves. Speaking of different personalities there, Dave, I don't know if you guys knew this, but Peter Cullen is also one of the Gremlin voices. Guy who did Optimus Prime for Transformers.
And if I'm not mistaken, is Frank Welker one of them?
Yeah.
Or the voice actor who's been in everything since...
Frank Welker did this voice for Stripe.
There you go. Frank Welker. That makes perfect sense. And I'm sure these guys don't know, but I've said it many times on the show before. Welker is a voice legend. He is the original Freddy Jones in Scooby-Doo, and no one else has done that voice except the time when they did a pup named Scooby-Doo. That's because they were different characters. But other than that, he's been consistently Freddy Jones in Scooby-Doo, and anytime there's a sidekick character, like a Slimer, or usually he does a Gizmo, which is funny that he's not Gizmo in this one, but if there's a Slimer or any kind of sidekick character in a Saturday morning cartoon, it's done by Frank Welker. He is a voice legend.
So that just goes to show the life of the Gremlins and how important each individual one was, that they have different voice actors for the Gremlins.
Oh, exactly.
Even though they sound so very much alike one another, I feel like the actors behind the voices went out of their way to make sure they definitely sounded different,
Yeah.
Actually, one thing I just stumbled on too, I didn't realize, was the TV news reporter. I think it might have been the one that's on the radio that was announcing the aftermath of the town that was being disrupted by the... That was Tom Bergeron.
Oh!
As everyone knows, as the host to Dancing with the Stars.
Oh, okay.
So there's not exactly someone I don't think anyone really put 2 and 2 together back in the day.
Well,
but
he's probably an old radio announcer like Casey Kasem, right?
Exactly. So
speaking of Scooby-Doo and voices,
he was apparently uncredited for this movie in the Gremlins. But I mean, the fact that there's another voice and face that we're familiar with, today. I think that, like you said, it speaks volumes on how timeless this piece goes with all of the talent.
So, what was your least favorite?
Yes, sorry.
You did this last time.
Well, it's because we had so many great things about that one scene as well. My least favorite, honestly, I think it was just the fact that the ending there's nothing to it. We knew they were trying to get rid of the Gremlins, and I feel like I was hoping for some great, fantastical moment of, with all the gore that we had seen the mother go through to dispatch the ones in her kitchen. So what do they do for the rest of them? They just burn them. and then it's
They blew them up in the theater.
And then
while they're watching Snow White.
Then it's left to what? Yeah, I know. Well, that's funny in itself.
That is really funny.
Yeah.
You know what's also funny about this? This is a Warner Brothers movie. That's almost they paid Disney just so they can make a joke as a saying like, they're terrible creatures, but the one thing they like is like Snow White. You know, like is that them saying that Snow White is terrible because it's Disney? Because I know Warner Brothers likes to take little jabs at Disney every once in a while, so I'm just wondering if that's.
Well, I mean, it could also speak to their childlike mentality, right?
Mm-hmm.
Their infancy. They are still. We talked about earlier. They're still children.
Yeah.
And if Gizmo is an aged mogwai, well, these are just children,
Right?
Enjoying themselves.
Adolescents.
Yeah.
All right, so the least favorite was just that they got rid of them significantly.
The build up to the ending. I just wasn't too impressed, and it's probably part of the reason why I feel like I said out loud, I could walk away from this film and not feel, pressured to go back to watch the rest. It's filler.
Once you get past that bar scene, actually, it is true that there's not too many other scenes that are really that stick in your mind too much. Like the mall, maybe a little bit. Some parts of the mall scene, but I think that you're right in saying that it's pretty much filler. Yeah.
Okay, so my favorite and least favorite. Man, I think you guys took all my favorites because my favorite scene is definitely what Steve said, because I think I said it to you when we were watching. I'm like, I think that's my favorite scene, because even when I was a kid, I remembered that. I just remember Billy's mom just walking into that kitchen and kicking some gremlin ass. Mm-hmm. And that's what she did. She blends the one fucking gremlin guts all over the place. She stabs another with a knife like a boss. Yep. And then throws the other one in the microwave and nukes that son of a bitch.
Which, by the way, kind of blew up a little too fast.
I don't give a fuck. I love all that gore.
It was in the microwave for like 3 seconds and pop.
You don't know the consistency.
Well, how long do you want to watch that scene?
Which realistically is the discovery of the gremlin's weakness.
Yeah,
microwave.
How hollow they are? Is that why it blew up in 3 seconds?
Give me a microwave gun and a gremlin, and I'll win every time.
You know what occurs to me now, though, is that may have been a missed opportunity for them, because that kitchen that we saw earlier was full of Billy's dad's inventions. It would have been actually kind of fun to see Billy's dad's inventions play a bigger part in this movie.
Yeah, like because they're not working well, they actually turn into weapons against the gremlins.
Yes.
And that would have been right on level with the campiness.
Oh, for sure!
And it would have made sense. I wonder if that's something that they considered and then cut out of the movie, or if it...
I'm not sure.
It's kind of weird.
I'm kind of visualizing Billy, doing the whole Lost Boys thing. They're putting the bandana. Oh, speaking of another movie that with Corey Feldman in it. Wow.
Hey, that's another movie we could watch for Halloween. Lost Boys, if you want it, recommend it.
But that does remind me of that whole scene with them putting their bandanas on and actually going out to venture off and kill the vampires. In this case, it would be Billy venturing off to kill the gremlins with all his father's campy inventions. Yeah. I can visualize that easily.
You can't tell me the bathroom buddy doesn't have some secret weapons in there.
Toothpaste alone is vicious.
Yes, exactly.
Just spray it in the gremlin's eyes. Oh, they can't see, and then you kick him in the nuts into the fireplace.
Speaking of which, how much freaking toothpaste is that stuff? I swear. I think he had like 3 bottles dumped on him by the time the thing was done squirting.
It's like the can of shaving cream from Jurassic Park. Yeah. To steal the embryos. It goes for 3 hours. It's fine. Yeah. That's Billy's relative.
All right, so finish what I like about it. That is my favorite scene. That's my favorite. But yes, definitely the practical effects, the mysticism, almost everything you guys said. It's got that 80s feel that I love because I grew up in that time. There's just something about 80s movies. I don't know what it is. They just got that magic to it. It just sticks with you for some reason. And maybe it's because all the movies have CGI now and they use practical effects back in the day and they really had to work hard to make a movie good. Maybe that's what it is. I don't know. But that's what I like about it. So that scene and just the 80s feel and the practical effects. Love it. And like you said, Boo, and I think I pointed out to you, a lot of detail in the characters in that scene. Even in the theater scene, just all the gremlins, you could pause it at any time. Even when they're running on the streets, just pause it. You see a guy being attacked by a gremlin in his window, like the silhouette of it. Mm-hmm. You see another guy like running around, there's gremlins on him. They're all over the place. You can pause like any scene when the gremlins show up and you just see all this stuff that you've never seen before. Probably why you didn't even notice the time machine disappearing on you, you know what I mean? There's lots of little things like that in this movie, and I love that. Makes it rewatchable. My least favorite part, there's a lot of holes in how the Gremlins get made and the biology of it doesn't really make a lot of sense. And as I said, it is silly. And I think that kind of lends to why it's good, but it also kind of lends to why it's not the best. Because it is silly, you can't take it seriously. There's no real stakes on the line. It's just a fun movie. And like I said, that makes it a good thing. But it also kind of takes away from it a little bit. So like I said, I wanted to give it a 4.5, but as the adult me watching it, and since I've been doing podcasts, I noticed I've been a little bit harsher on movies. So yeah, that's why I gave it a 4, because of those reasons.
Because you're such a hard ass.
Yeah, I'm such a hard ass. I probably give like the highest ratings on the show.
We have to be critical. Actually, there's one thing that can be said too. This movie has it's almost like a split personality effect, where it tries to be a horror movie, but it also tries to be a comedy movie, but at the same time, so you can't take it seriously, because clearly a movie of that genre type, you cannot. But it is very much a memorable movie because of what it tries to do, right?
Yeah.
So.
Mm-hmm. And it does what it set out to do.
Yeah.
It did exactly what it set out to do.
I think in being a horror comedy, it was very successful. Like, I think it did walk that line quite well. I mean, especially since it's for kids. I mean, that's where the campiness and the comedy comes in, where you can't take it seriously. I agree with you on that. But I think that's probably the thing they were going to for. You know?
Yeah,
that's
for
what
sure.
They were trying to do.
They definitely were going for that, and in that sense, they succeeded.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And one thing that'll always stick with me in this movie, after you've watched it, you've experienced it, you've thought about Billy, you've thought about the mogwai, and you're sitting there watching the credits, you got to think to yourself,
Phoebe Cates is hot.
That is also true.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, but you also got to remember, I'm never going to get this credit music out of my head. That Gremlins soundtrack. That exact song that I'm never going to get out of my head now.
I love it.
Well,
Once again, the
I
music
did yesterday, but now I'm not. Thanks.
Once again, music from 80s movies is great.
Yes.
I don't know what it is about modern movies. They just can't do it like they did back in the day.
Well, they go for the big score, or I find they go for recycled music that you've heard from the 80s a bunch of times.
They
I
just
want a
take the
big
same
score.
thing that you heard before and kind of modify a little
There's
bit.
only so much you can keep in your head, like whop.
No.
You know? That just doesn't stick in your head quite as well.
Steve likes womps in his day-to-day life.
Yeah.
So you watch a lot of War of the Worlds then?
Yeah, a lot of War of the Worlds, a lot of Inception.
Any trailer that starts off with "wah," I'm like, I'm out of here.
Yeah, exactly,
No, I'm not doing it.
Big destruction. Big destruction.
So why did we go watch
Inception?
Independence Day Insurgents? Because it had a lot of that.
So we could have a funny review about it on YouTube. All right, is there anything you guys want to add to this Gremlins review?
I think that after all is said and done, the one thing you have to take away from this movie is what's going on with that old man in the shop. You know, what's his deal?
Let's go back. Like, what's his story?
I think there are questions that need to be answered.
And to further that, what needs to be answered is: here's your 3 rules. What should we do if you break them? I don't see a reason to tell you that.
Yeah.
He's obviously dealt with gremlins before. He's obviously knows how to wrangle them in. I don't need to tell you that much.
It's almost like you're saying he set the rules, but he didn't explain what the repercussions were.
Yeah.
Well, in fairness to the old man,
Maybe
though,
why they
that
didn't
was
take him seriously.
the kid's fault. The
Yeah.
little kid that Gay sold him the mogwai, well, kind of dropped the
Skipped
ball
that
there.
part.
Yeah.
He just said, "Oh, I trust you. I'm sure you'll do fine."
You're
with
an
it."
adult. Here are the 3 rules.
Yeah,
I expect you to follow.
That's probably exactly what it was. You're an old man. You probably know what you're
Yeah.
doing. I have to admit, if there's one thing there's 2 things I do want to say. One, when I think back on it, when you look at the amount of gore that they had put, and I'm going to think back again on the kitchen scene, the way the mother dispatched the gremlins, that was quite gory. Mm-hmm. I mean, quite graphic.
Yeah,
right?
but they're only monsters. Though.
Exactly. So we take that same concept and we look at a scene like the gremlin taking the tractor trailer and going through the living room and then running over those supposed...
The Futtermans, who look like they die, but they don't, because they're in the second one.
Yeah, okay. So having said that, if we assume they had been killed, we don't see it on screen. Hence, anything that involved the humans being killed, you don't see any of it. Even the teacher that got killed by, I guess I'm assuming is Stripe.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
No, it wasn't Stripe. It was a
wasn't?
different one. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it was the one that he brought in for blood tests.
Oh, right. Yeah. But I mean, even then, not a single one of the humans were actually seen on screen dying. So you can tell.
Maybe you did see her get blasted out that window.
Yeah, but that's
land.
like watching a rag doll fall down a flight of stairs.
Yeah.
There's no blood, there's no gore. It's actually quite presentable on screen.
Oh, for sure.
To a degree.
Yeah, what a good point. We're comfortable with monster death, but in this movie, we're not willing to make the jump to people.
And quite graphic and horrifically too. Like, I mean, when she stabs the gremlin, that's a pretty violent action. When she, nukes the one and the thing blows up in front of the camera, for crying out loud, there was nothing clean about it.
Well, hell, when Stripe came out of that fountain after being exposed to sunlight, and he's melting off his own skeleton there, and his eyes are bursting out of his skull.
Exactly. Oh, and
that was gruesome.
And what are the people doing when this is happening? And who walked into the room? Was it the father that walks in? And he doesn't even say anything. He just stands there and watches.
He's like, what's going on? Well, he just came back. He's like, wait a minute. What's going on? He missed the whole Gremlin. He has no clue.
He's the one narrating.
He's the one narrating. He wasn't even there.
Yeah.
Hey, Dad, give me your scarf. Okay.
So tell me about that Gremlin story again. It's a good story to tell to customers when I'm trying to sell them my crappy products.
I seriously hope he walks in. He's like, I should have got you an Atari. I'm so sorry, kid.
They had one right beside the mogwai.
I think the other thing I did want to mention was that I would literally love to see a reboot of this, but only, and I mean only, if they do something like kind of like what you guys said. I don't want the same story retold. I want a different point of view. And I think what would work great in a very dark and gritty fashion, with quite a bit of suspense and horror to back it up, would be, the backstory of that said grandfather, how he came to be the keeper of the mogwai.
Yeah.
Why is he so important? What the hell?
He definitely made his own mistakes, right? So
well, clearly, because he didn't even explain to his own damn grandson as to how important that mogwai was.
Yeah.
Like, the kid knew about it and went as far as to enticing another man to come and buy it, even though the grandfather had no intention of selling it, to the point where the kid went out of his way to steal it.
Yeah.
And sell it to the man. So did he need cash badly? Like, what the hell? Did he owe someone?
He did say that. He did say they needed money.
We need the money.
I get that. But, it's all of that said and done that I feel like, okay, they were playing on the humorous tone. Just go back. Take it seriously, and you guys can make an amazing horror thriller.
You can make a good horror movie with this.
Hell yes.
All right. We don't have all night to talk about this, but I wish we did. So that is our review of Gremlins. So you got to do all those things that we like. You got to like, you got to share, you got to comment on this video. You got to subscribe if you haven't done that already. You can check us out on Facebook. Give us a big old like there. Check us out on Twitter. You can always join the conversation at We Promise Nothing. Drop the G. We're also on Instagram. We Promise Nothing with the G. And where can they follow you guys?
You can see us on Twitter at TalkNerdyTV.
And on Eastlink TV, Monday night at 8 o'clock. Or if you're an Eastlink subscriber, anytime on Channel 10. We run about 3 times a day.
Yeah, we're there.
Awesome. So check their show out and keep listening to our show. We love it when you guys do that. This is JPar signing out.
Dabu going bye-bye.
This is Steve. Don't feed me after midnight.
And Dave, Steve's my ride.
And remember, if you disagree with anything that you heard on the show today, you can leave a comment below. But as always,
We promise nothing!
Good night.